Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
So the topic today is, whom do we serve, or whom do I serve? We've been talking about the calling through 4 topics. One is choosing to be chosen. We were all chosen, but we have to choose consciously to be chosen. We talked about consciously recognizing and acknowledging the many blessings that are in our life. We've talked about rising up from those challenges, not letting them pull us down, but as choosing to be chosen and seeing the blessings, when life does get difficult, we can rise up. And last week we talked about being the peace that passes all human understanding as we stand in our calling, in our choosing to be chosenness. But all of it doesn't have the total vitality that we need until we ask 2 questions. And the first question is, who is served by us? So just ask yourself the question, who is served by me? It's an interesting question, isn't it? Who is served by me being who I am, by me showing up into the world as I do? Who is served by me in my family, in my community, at my work, in the cosmos? Who is served by me? Adam Grant is an organizational psychologist, and he was noting that one of the most dreary jobs, difficult, thankless jobs, are students who work at a call center at colleges and university. Their job is to call people, generally alumni, to get them to give money, because their money provides scholarships for other people in the community. And so you've probably, if you've graduated from a college, you've gotten these calls about, can you contribute? The turnover rate for call centers is 400%. That means like within every 3 months the entire staff leaves. But not obviously all at the same time. But 400% is a lot of turnover for a job. And it's because it's a thankless job. Most people say, hang up on, hang, and they have a little speech that they have to give about why it's good to give. And so they read their little script, and then people don't like you and get mad, and so they leave the job. So Adam Grant, with his organizational psychology, said, well, let's see if we can do something about this. So what they did was they had, for 5 minutes, they had the students, well, they had 2 groups. One group just took their regular 15-minute break, but the other group would meet with one student who was impacted by the money that was given to them, the scholarship that they received from the school. From that 5-minute conversation, one 5-minute conversation, this wasn't happening every day or every week, one 5-minute conversation with someone who was impacted by what they did, the people in that group, their sales went from, their donations went from $400 a week to $2,000 a week. They got no added benefits, no perks for getting more, but they were on fire now because they were beginning to see the impact that they were making on other people. And suddenly what they were doing had meaning and purpose. Our call, our chosenness, all of it does not mean much if it's not impacting other people. And what's also interesting is that it's important for us to know specifically what that looks like. There's an accounting firm, and it only has letters, and I can't remember what those letters are right now. I'd never heard of them before. They must be fairly large. I'm like, those letters could be a password on one of my accounts. I don't know. They're just letters. But it's a big accounting firm, another thankless job. A lot of the people in that accounting firm do tax audits. They go to people's businesses. They don't want them there. They stick them off in some cubicle, and they're just doing data entry and sheets all day long in an environment that's like not wanting to hear, or they don't want you to talk to them. And so they were trying to say, well, how can we motivate our organization? Again, I don't remember the letters, but they've apparently been around quite a long time, and they're fairly large. So what they did was started a campaign about purpose. how this accounting organization had impacted world events. And they talked about Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the New Deal, and what their accounting firm, how they support something that they did that worked with the New Deal to make it better. And he gave all sorts of different examples. I remember helping Nelson Mandela become president of South Africa when he left prison. So what they did was they picked these stories, they made them into big billboards, and they had it so everybody in this organization knew about the impact that this company was making, this accounting company that seemed sort of abstract and thankless. Like, no, you're impacting world events. Let's get on fire about this. And what they found was that helped, and he said it moved the needle a little bit, but not for a long time and not as big as they had hoped. They also found that having mission, purpose, and purpose statements also don't really seem to fire people up. That you can spend a lot of time workshopping a mission, purpose, vision statement and making it perfect, and it can just be exactly what you want, but is it what inspires you at your job? So I started thinking, I've worked in a lot of churches, and most of the churches I've worked in, I've been in a ministerial role, but I thought back to Agape, because Agape was the center where I was a member. I was on staff, but I wasn't a minister. And that's a big community like this one in Los Angeles. I would say a spiritual progressive community. And I do remember I couldn't repeat it, but I remember liking their purpose statement. All of the purpose statements and visions and mission statements I've read, they seem very workshopped and sterile. But this one I really liked, and I don't remember the wording, but I remember the essence of it is we practice what we preach. Like, we don't just think, we live it. We don't just think about it, we live it, which I thought was great. But then I was thinking, if someone asked me why I loved Agape, why I was there as a member, why I became a member, that statement, until that person said it, I hadn't realized, but the purpose statement had nothing to do with it. Their vision or purpose had nothing to do with why I loved being in that community and why I wanted to be a member of that community. And I'll get back to that at the very end. So what this accounting firm did was, instead of having sort of a generic statement, what they decided, it must be a big company because they set a goal of 10,000 stories. And they wanted, rather than we tell you the stories of our company, you tell us the stories of how you are impacting people's lives through the work that you do here. Their goal was 10,000 stories, and people were finding a way that through their accounting methods, they were working with a bank, and that bank was keeping from money laundering to terrorists. So I'm stopping terrorism by working with this bank, or I'm helping create funding for people without homes because I'm keeping the records straight and people in alignment and integrity. And so people started discovering how their job that seemed so inconsequential was actually what they specifically were doing, the clients that they were specifically working with, how it was making the world a better place. They reached their goal of 10,000 stories, but they actually got 42,000 stories. People needed and wanted to tell their stories, and morale shot up, everything shot up, because now people were making a connection consciously, not just sort of abstractly, yeah, I'm making the world a better place, or I know it's helping, but to consciously have to tell the story. Telling the story to somebody else of how your life is impacting somebody else's life, and to consciously acknowledge and recognize that. Who is served by you? So I invite you this week, as we're talking about our chosenness and our calling, as we're ending this series, is to ask yourself, who is served by you? The second question is, who do I serve? And that's an interesting question. So sometimes we can feel like we're serving our jobs. We're serving our to-do list. We're serving our employer because that's where we get our money and we need to survive. So I'm serving that, and that was sort of, that's what Reverend Michael was referring to in the reading this morning, is that almost feels like bondage because I'm trying to get something by doing the work and the tasks. Or for those of us who are parents or taking care of parents or taking care of anyone, actually, that can feel like servitude, where we're in bondage because I have to show up and do it. That's where I'm doing my work. Who am I serving? I'm serving this person because I have to. The beauty of being on the spiritual path is to realize that the place from which we want to serve is not out there. They are not the source of why we do what we do, but it is the divine power and energy moving through and as us. We are serving the divine in everything that we do. So even though when we go to work, we get our paycheck from there and we have our tasks and our things that we're supposed to do, all of it we can reframe and say, no, all of this is for God. All of this is, I am serving the one power, the one presence. It is impossible for us to ever be outside of this oneness. And so when we consciously recognize that that is what we are doing, that creates an opening and a space rather than a constriction and an exhaustion. I remember my favorite teacher, Shunru Suzuki, always says tiredness comes from ego, because you think you're the one doing the work. The more we get our, as Ralph Waldo Emerson says, get our bloated nothingness out of the way, and we allow this infinite love intelligence to move through us, to say that it's doing the work, not I, but the Mother, Father, God within us is doing the work, then suddenly it frees up our energy. It makes our burdens light. We become freer and more open. And the energy and vitality of living comes through. We are not doing anything because we have to. We are doing it because we choose, not only to be chosen, but we choose whom we serve. We serve this infinite love intelligence of the universe. There's another aspect of this, of the question, though, about who is served by me. Because I was thinking about this, I was listening to the stories, and I thought, well, there's also the danger, because I hear this all the time, and I think this is true for a lot of us, is people say, I'm a people pleaser. And I think if we're only doing to get the results, like that's what motivates us, to know that our calling and our chosenness is impacting the world. But if having to know that we're impacting is what's going to validate us, then we get to shifting our attention like, oh, am I impacting you? Did I do good? You know, we know that that's the people pleasing. Are you better because I'm here? And then suddenly there's a dependency on the world of effect. What allows us to serve others is, again, knowing that the divine presence is moving through us and to let go of our attachment. Because when we trust the divine presence at the center of our being is doing the work, we can know that it's doing its work through and as us, and it's impacting in the exact way that it needs to, and we can take our hands off of it. So we know, we can feel the vitality and the joy knowing that we are making a difference in the world, but we don't have to grasp at it. We don't have to go, oh, am I making a difference? We just let it go. Because we know anytime we are in this divine wholeness and this oneness, we are making a difference. There's another element to this question which I think is interesting. So in the title for today's talk, I put, whom or what do I serve, or what do you serve, or what do we serve? And I use what because a lot of times in conversations with people, I was doing interviews, I think it was last year, I was doing some interviews with people up front, I don't know if you remember, asking people how they perceive God, but I asked people that a lot. And what I've discovered is a lot of people in the spiritual progressive world have taken sort of a personhood away from the divine, because there's a feeling like that's anthropomorphic, and what we love is principle. And so love is a principle. Love just is. It's not a mother or father unless we project that onto there, but the love itself is just there. And we talk a lot about, in Centers for Spiritual Living, if you take the classes, we talk a lot about the law. What the law is a responsive energy. It responds. It's energy that surrounds us. And this is important. Because when we say, whom do I serve? If I say I'm just serving energy, because a lot of people say, what is, if I ask them what the divine is, well, it's just energy swirling around. But are you serving that energy? Does that energy even care about you? Because the way we teach about the law is that it's responsive to anything. It's neutral. It doesn't say this is good, this is bad, this is for you, this is against you. It's like soil that you plant seeds in. It's this energy that is ever moving, and it can move in and for us if we use it that way. But it and of itself does not have any opinion or care about you. The law of electricity doesn't care. It has no opinion about whether we are using it or not. The law of gravity does not have an emotional response to how we are using it. So it's very important, as Ernest Holmes said, the law is there to serve love. And what I would also, and he talks about love being both impersonal and personal. Because it's really hard to want to give ourselves to something that is fairly indifferent to our existence. When it's impersonal, when it's just a principle, when it's just the thing itself, it just is this ever-present beingness, it's hard to feel a vitality and joy in being of service to a thing that just is. That it doesn't particularly care if it's me or anybody else. It's fairly indifferent because it just is. Love just is. What brings it alive, just as we get more alive when we know that we're impacting others, that animates us, that motivates us, that gives us energy. Love is energy, and love is divine intelligence. It knows who every one of us is. It is every one of us, and it is completely invested in us becoming more and more of who we are meant to be. And so when we say, whom do we serve, we are serving something that actually cares about us. It cares about what we are doing. It hears and feels our heart because it is in the center of us. I'm talking about it as if it's separate. I know it's hard. It's not separate. It is who and what we are. It is not inside of our body as much as it's inside of our consciousness. So it's infinite, because there's no time or place, so it's hard to describe this. But it's a timeless and spaceless essence that is infinite, that is fully and wholly in each and every one of us, and it is greater than our human self. It is so much greater than our human self. Because most of us humanly, I don't see infinite beings. I see infinite acting as finite beings. And so to say that that infinite part of ourself cares and knows what is for our highest fulfillment. To say, I want to give myself to that presence. I want to love it. I want to love it or you with my whole heart. It's harder for me to love it. That's just me. I'm going to only speak for what I know. What I know is that presence has been very particular and specific in a relationship way since I was a kid, so I have a hard time relating to it as an it, like it's an abstract thought. It is very real and alive and cares, and giving ourselves more and more through love to it, in service to it. I'm saying it to get it out of the gender. Serving it, we give ourselves more and more to that presence and that power. It becomes more and more radiating as every atom and cell of our being. It becomes more and more about every relationship that we're in. It becomes more and more in the middle of our tasks. We can experience it while we're brushing our teeth. We can experience it while we're doing our bank account. We can experience it while we're doing a project at work. We can experience it in difficult relationships with people that we're just really struggling with. When we consciously and continually say, I'm still going to find the love here. I'm still going to call forth this infinite love energy that loves itself as me, that has never left me, and has never abandoned me. It has never betrayed me, and it never will. I will give my whole self to that. That allows me to give my whole self to others. And suddenly this idea of oneness becomes a living, vital reality. Do you all get that? A living, vital reality. We are love itself, alive and awake. So today is New Member Sunday. And what I want to say to those of you who are going to become, well, first of all, when we say New Member Sunday, it was hard for me at first. We haven't had a lot of New Member Sundays. And the reason why is because it was hard for me at first, because to me, we are a community without walls. The cosmos is our home. Everyone is a member of our hearts. So there's no a place where something stops and something begins. So why become a member? And it's just an a finite moment, just as we're all finite people, to say, this is a place for spiritual community. This is one of my spiritual communities of which I give myself and my energy so I can grow spiritually. And so what I want to say to those of you who are going to be, Jerry later on is going to be doing our official new member installation, is that you've already made an impact on our community's lives. You saying yes to saying you want to be part of this community and give your beautiful, unique gifts in whatever way that works for you, and saying yes to that and be willing to get up and stand and say yes to that, that's impacted my life. It's impacted our community's life. Those people, you can't see people online. It makes a difference. And it's made a difference to me already, so thank you for impacting my life. Thank you. And we hope your lives are impacted as well. Why I became a member of Agape all those years ago wasn't because of the purpose statement, wasn't because of all the millions of ministries it did. I loved all those things that it did. But I loved that I was in a community of people who were consciously on the spiritual journey, that we were all figuring it out and exploring and learning together, and I could share my journey and my difficulties, and they would share theirs. And sometimes it's difficult because we're different, and we get in challenges, spiritual challenges, that you might not get in anywhere else in the world, because you won't get in spiritual challenges with people at work generally, but you might have some here. But that's the best thing in the world, because we grow and we grow and we grow. I remember my beautiful dear friend, who I'm still friends with from Agape, and I remember him saying to me, something happened in a workshop, and he just threw himself out there, and I go, why did you do that? Like, what are you, nuts? Like, to share all that? He said, if I can't do it here, I can't do it anywhere. If I can't struggle with my own stuff in a community that says we're about unconditional love, then where can I do it? And the healing, the amazing amounts of healings that I saw in my own healing and my own struggling through different things and being met by unconditional love by the community members, by people who supported and saw the best in me, because the best way we can be of service to one another, the best way we can be of service to one another, the best way we can be of service to anyone on this planet, any being, any animal, any plant, is to see the wholeness and the perfection of pure spirit at the center of anyone's being. That when we are with somebody, we all have our stories. Every one of us has our stories, our challenges, our pains. But behind all of that is this wholeness and this perfection. To hold that space for somebody, when they're going through it, when they can't see it for themselves, when they're struggling, when they're in shame or embarrassment or in pain, or financial challenges or health challenges, whatever that self-judgment is, to be able to hold and say, I hear that pain, and at the same time I'm seeing simultaneously, and we're not denying the pain, we're not denying the challenges, but at the same time, I know that at the center of your being is this glorious, radiant wholeness of pure spirit, always untouched, unchanged by any of the human conditions that are happening around you, and I commit to holding that truth for you, no matter what. I am holding the truth of your spiritual being. That is the greatest impact you can have on another soul, and that's what we're committed to doing in this community. We are committed to holding the truth of who you really are. No matter what, even when we're going through stuff, that doesn't mean we don't go through stuff. But we, at the same time, through our spiritual practices, so even in the midst of it, I can know that there is this essence that is within me that honors and sees the essence of beauty and truth and wholeness that is within you. That is the extraordinary gift of being part of a spiritual community. And we offer that to you as you offer that to us. Living our calling, impacting others, being a vehicle for the divine presence of God. There is no greater gift. And this is such a great, incredible day to welcome you as members. And so I look forward to our new member installation. And for all of us, may we live our calling and our chosenness every day. Let's pray. And so we begin this prayer in humility and in awe, that we are together in this moment, consciously recognizing that every one of us in this room, online, people who are listening later, as well as all beings everywhere, all animals, all plants, all of us, are in the presence and the power of pure spirit. That at the center of all of us is this extraordinary, vast, unconditional love and light that is beyond really any human words or concepts. It is alive and awake. And it is alive and awake as all of us this beautiful, radiant morning. It is with such joy that we come together to recognize people who have said yes to being on the spiritual journey today as a community, not just individually, but as a community, and that there is a power where two or more gather. There's a power of saying yes to supporting and loving one another on this incredibly exquisite, sometimes challenging, and beautiful journey. I am so grateful for all the connections that already exist, and these connections that will be deepening and deepening and deepening in pure, unlimited, unconditional love. And so for this, I just say thank you, thank you, thank you, God. I release this word into the law and energy of pure spirit, knowing that if we had known this together, it is already done. And so I invite you now to join me in saying, and so it is. Amen and amen.
I walk in God in all